Hi, and welcome to Mods. We're keeping you connected to inspiring science with virtual camp discovery, brought to you by Citrix, the museum's official innovation partner. We'll uncover the slick truth about oil spills and their major impact on our ecosystem. By simulating an oil spill, let's explore the many ways we as humans help undo the damage to animals, water, and the environment. Hey, welcome back to Camp Virtual Discovery here at the Museum of Discovery and Science. My name's Michael, and I'm with
Brady.
And today we're going to talk all about oil. Now, not the cooking oil maybe that you find in the house, but we're going to actually go deep into the earth and talk about the crude oil that you would find there. But we're also inside of our Expedition Dinosaur exhibit here at the museum, which is with us through September. Brady, what can you tell us about this oil that's deep inside the earth?
So oil is a collection of a lot of organic material that has deposited into the earth and kind of cooked up over a long period of time, and some parts of our geologic time scale that was closer to the surface than others. So for dinosaurs and things like that, they might get stuck in these tar pits, and also the decaying organic matter from the dinosaurs and the plants and animals that lived at that time go into the earth and kind of cook up and become this oil.
So the oil doesn't just magically appear like up above the earth, right? We actually have to drill down to get it.
Yeah, so if we were to extract the oil to maybe like power gasoline or things like that, or even make plastics and things, you would have to dig deep into the earth, going back like millions of years into the geologic timescale to find these little oil deposits. So it takes a lot of work and a lot of power to bring it out.
Yep, and being that environmental sustainability is like one of our pillars here, we're not really pushing for plastic, but
right.
It is involved in the plastic process.
Exactly.
Understood. So, so let's just say I'm working on the oil rig. What kind of careers would you say, would be involved there? What kind of careers would people look into?
Well, one of the things about extracting oil is it takes a lot of intensive labor, a lot of intensive capital and things. So like you basically have to build a small city on these little man-made islands to extract them out. So you could have all kinds of careers, from a cook to a cleaner to the geologist looking for the oil, to the people, the mechanics running the machines and things like that.
So I know throughout our history we've had oil spills occur. So explain like what happens. Like okay, the oil starts to pop up, and then density-wise, where does the oil go? Where does it settle, I guess?
Right, so since the oil is found deep into the earth, it's coming from another layer of the earth. So in order to extract it and bring it onto our surface layer on the crust of the earth, it's going to react differently than the other things there. A lot of the plant and animal life there adapted to kind of not be exposed to that kind of oil. So you get a lot of oil that especially if it's out in the ocean or something, that oil will come and just lay a huge slick across the surface of the oil, and will alter the chemistry of the ocean and be harmful to the wildlife.
So the oil is resting on top of the ocean now, so I'm assuming oxygen starts to go down in the ocean because nothing can happen there. So I see that you have a little bit of oil here. What are we doing today? So
we're going to simulate an oil spill, because these things do happen and it can be a very, very damaging thing, both ecologically, economically, and all around. So we're going to try to test some different ways of solving that problem. So there's a few different methods of cleaning up the oil, because cleaning up oil out of water is not that easy.
So it just doesn't magically like disappear out of the ocean,
you know, right? It's not quite like just getting some smudges off your window or something. There's a lot more involved in it.
Okay.
So we're going to test out just a few of those methods. Of course, we're simulating this, in our lab here. So I have some synthetic oil here, and I'm going to just kind of pour a slick across this water.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of just see what happens.
So immediately you can see on camera as we're doing this that the oil really, once it hits the water, it bubbles and it starts to then float back to the top. The oil will always rest on top. If you don't believe me, you can do it as an at-home experiment. Ask mom and dad to help you out. Get a glass, put a little oil, put a little water in it, and see what happens, and just let it settle. So right now I see that we have this oil slick on top. So any animal that might live in the ocean that needs to breathe, sea turtles for example, might come up, try to breathe, and they're gonna actually get covered in this oil, right?
Yeah, and just in the process, and the birds that come down, and the plankton that eat off the surface of the water, it's gonna make its way through that ecosystem ecosystem, so you want to clean it up as fast and as efficiently and as completely as possible.
Okay, so what are our ideas here? What are you thinking?
So the first method we're going to try out is just very primitive. I have a spoon. We're going to simulate just scooping it out, because if we see it's a different density and it rests on top,
okay,
maybe it'll just peel right off.
Kind of like when I'm cooking, I got like that grease on top. I don't want it on the whatever I'm cooking, so I kind of ladle it off, right?
Sure.
Okay,
yeah,
so let's see what happens.
So just by scooping, we can scoop out a little bit of it, but then also think, in this, I'm also getting a little bit of water out. So it's not so much that I'm extracting the oil from the water, I'm just scooping out the parts of the water that have oil. And as you can see, it's taking a long time, and what I'm doing is pushing the water around. And now I'm creating more currents, and so I'm really just pushing the oil to other places rather than getting it out of the water.
Okay, so what's a second option then that we might investigate here?
We don't want to disperse it. We don't want to stir the water around much.
Right.
So maybe the best method is to absorb the oil. So
okay, that makes sense.
I have some cotton rounds here, and these are, just general little cotton rounds like you would take your makeup off with or something. And if I put these here and just try to absorb the oil, it does a little bit better job, right? Now it'll absorb that out, and I can peel it, and I'm getting some out. I'm getting out a lot of oil there. But this is going to take a long time and a lot of cotton, right?
The big ocean.
It's a big ocean. So this is working pretty well, but I'm going to need a lot of this stuff to get this whole huge oil slick off.
That's a lot of boats, a lot of cotton, a lot of
boats, it's a lot of cotton.
Okay, so I see that we have this, which kind of looks like cotton to me. Why don't you tell me what this is?
So this is a sorbent particulate matter, and what this is going to do is not only absorb the oil, but it's going to absorb the oil and kind of take the oil through a chemical change where now it becomes a solid material, and you can see it just kind of sucking it right up there.
Yeah, I totally see that.
And that's going to make it's going to take all the oil, put it in one place, and make it a state of matter that's a lot easier to physically remove, right? So once this absorbs it and turns it into a solid, I'll be able to start scooping this out a lot easier, and we'll have a cleaner ocean.
I mean, just looking at this, I can see how quickly I can see through the water now.
Yeah, now we can just see like a few spots of oil rather than, the entire surface of the ocean being an oil slick.
Wow, that's so slick. Anyways, so what about the animals now? So we're talking about we're able to clean this up a little bit, and this is kind of a good answer environmentally, but what about the animals? We see all these horror stories of these animals and see these animals that are just dredged in oil. What are some solid ways to get those animals cleaned up? Who does that?
Yeah, so now that the ecosystem is starting to look a little bit cleaner, again, the ocean moves. So having oil on top of it will get scattered in different places. Seabirds and turtles and things like that, coastal animals will often be found covered in oil. And in order to save them, you'll have to clean them off, right?
Okay.
So soap.
So just regular dishwashing liquid works really well? Is that what you're saying?
It should.
Okay, it should. So if our visitors at home wanted to give this a shot, what's something they could, just to test the theory?
So you could experiment this. If you have something in your cabinet like vegetable oil or olive oil or something, try to put some on your hand and rub it across your hand so that your hand is now covered in oil. So now you can simulate or maybe relate to the animals that are covered in oil when something like this happens.
Okay.
And see what happens if you just maybe rinse it off with water a little bit, try a couple different methods, and then try some dish soap. Just a drop or two of dish,
right?
Just a drop or two of dish soap, and then rub that out and then rinse it off. And what that does is that disperses the oil so that it removes it from that density layer of the water and just peels it right off.
So here's just my last question.
Yes.
Obviously, we can't just pour soap into the ocean because that would just totally offset everything.
Be a lot of soap and it would be a different ocean.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and we'll see everybody next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Virtual Camp Discovery. Special thanks to Citrix, Mod's official innovation partner, for powering this series. Please stay safe and connected with Mods by visiting our social channels at MODSFTL.